All right. So
All right.
views per.
So what I was talking about was that events like the fiscal crisis are not monocausal. I can turn off this. Stop it. I like Teenage Fan Club from 10 before you were born. Historical events are not monocausal. Like, just to give you a medical example, diseases are very often caused by a weakened immune system plus an opportunistic infection. So, surely, as Shuvro has pointed out, we have financial mismanagement. Surely we have a piling up of debt in an inappropriate fashion. But we've got other things going on. The social crisis of the 1960s includes such things as urban riots. I mentioned in 1967, Newark burned with 47 dead. Man, that's a lot of dead people in one city. New York City also burned several times in the 60s, with riots in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Bushwick, Manhattanville, and elsewhere, right? There was a great deal of a combination of racial and economic tension in the city. At one point in 1966, the borough president of Brooklyn actually said the cities are unsafe. What an astounding thing to say, right? In 1974, the federal government changed the way it funded the cities. It started to give them basically block grants, which is just a large chunk of money, and said, you can spend this however you want to spend it, which is all cool until you realize it's less money than they were getting before. And it was insufficient to meet New York City's budgetary needs. So all of a sudden, on top of all that debt, we have this brand new budget for shortfall in 1974, which no one was looking forward to. Right? This sets the stage for a financial catastrophe. And you guys know the story of the collapse very well. You can tell that story by yourselves without any help from me. But you want to tell the story. What the hell happened? You know, Abe Beame was at one point walking from City Hall to Federal Courthouse with the default papers in his hands when he was stopped by Albert Shanker and said, okay, I give in. Albert Shanker is the teachers union, and essentially Beame had said to Shanker, you know, you either change the contract or the city goes into default. And Shanker said, we're not going to do that. That can't be done. And that. You can find daily news headlines about how the property all over the city was getting burned for insurance money because there was no benefit in actually renting anymore. The insurance dollars were worth more than the rent that could be collected, and people thought, well, you know, then I'll default and the city will take it over and it's off my hands. So landlords did this quite often in the South Bronx, naturally, you know that very well, but also in places like Bushwick and in Bed-Stuy, right? I mean, you know what the story of the South Bronx is the story of the Cross Bronx Expressway, right? I mean, it basically plowed a hole through enormous communities from one side of the Bronx to the other, and that which was south of the Bronx, south of the expressway, died. It cut all those communities off from the other side of the Bronx. So by 1977, the South Bronx, 75, 76, the South Bronx is the American symbol of urban decay. Carter goes there in 1976, I believe, while he's campaigning. No, it's got to be 75. When he's campaigning for president, and says, you know, this is the state of American cities, we're going to have to fix this, and blah, 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 blah. You know, he gives the good liberal Carter-ish kind of talk. You got the blackout as one of the consequences. It's unquestionably one of the consequences. Look, they had to cut the police force. They cut the police force from, what did you guys tell me? Dane, what are you...
I have the numbers.
Okay, but it's like from 31,000 to 25,000 or something like that, right? I mean, it's a heavy cut. They also cut the fire department at the same time, right? They stopped collecting garbage in certain parts of the city entirely. So the whole city's infrastructure was beginning to dissolve. Right? And so by 1977, when the lights go out, there's a fantastic difference between the way the city reacted in 1965 when the lights went out. Tony Wallace told you all about that. And 1977. Right? I mean, in 1970, it's called a sneaker riot because people were after physical goods that would make that they couldn't afford ordinarily, that would make their life better. And so in Manhattanville, for example, the sneaker stores were hit. Up and down Broadway in Brooklyn, places were burned and looted. For a couple of days, it went on until the power was restored 2.5 days later in Manhattan. And it took a while in the rest of the city. You could probably expand on this concept of social consequences. You know, play for yourselves. The Rolling Stones' "Some Girls" album. I'm absolutely dead serious about that. It's recorded in New York City in 1967, and it's all about the dissolving city around them. Especially the song "Shattered." Can't give it away on 7th Avenue. This town, it's in tatters. I'm a terrible singer, but that's what Jagger was singing. And it's all about, the city is crumbling, but they would rather be here than in Britain because of the tax laws. Okay, fine. Geez, you can find a whole bunch of pop music about New York City in the 70s. Look at Lou Reed. Disco was, of course, the dominant thing. So what happens is, of course, is you know better than me that Felix Rohatyn is called in, or Royalton, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, is called in and asked to do something here to rescue the city's finances, and of course it comes up with MAC, the Municipal Assistance Corporation, which will take over New York City finances.